Mediator by Gideon Optics is a closed emitter optic designed to work with the new ACRO footprint. Its compact 16mm lens brings a big window for its weight at just under 2.5 ounces, and its closed emitter design leaves it waterproof, shockproof, and all-around rugged whether you are mounting it to a pistol plate or slapping it on a rifle. The Gideon Mediator. This is the first optic that I've tested from Gideon Optics, the new kid on the block, and thus far I am enjoying myself. I got to try out some of their other offerings at the Iraq Veteran Shoot. Hopefully some of those will be showing up here for testing soon, but like I said, this is the first one that I've gotten to play with. It is their closed emitter optic. It's an ACRO footprint. And it obviously is currently mounted in their riser mount for an absolute co-witness on AR height sights, as we expect. That said, there are several variants of the Gideon Mediator, and they all kind of center around the reticle. So there's a 3 MOA dot, a 38 MOA circle, and then a combination of those two, a circle dot, if you will, and they're offered in both red and green. This is the red variant. And if you had asked Baby Curtis some years ago what his preference would be, he would have told you the 3 MOA dot, give that to me, and then, you know, lose the rest. However, as my eyes continue to function less efficiently, we'll say, I have come to appreciate the value of that exterior circle to just really drive home the center of the optic. Fast acquisition, fast pickup, get that circle on the target, and then if you need to fine adjust with the center dot, then you can. But in addition to that, that exterior dot has a lot of functionality that maybe a lot of people don't consider. For instance, a 38 MOA dot, if you throw it on a man-sized target at 200 yards, that target should fill the entire circle. So that can be used in range approximation. You're not going to get a fine range from that, but you can get a pretty close estimate of where you're at, particularly if you're considering using this on a pistol, right? Because 200 yards, I mean, if it fills the entire stadia, then you know that it's probably a little bit far of a shot for your 9mm pistol, right? If you're using an optic like this on top of a rifle, like this one for instance, you can see there's some vertical offset between your height of your optic and the bore. And if you're shooting inside the zero distance, then the bullet has not yet risen to the height of the zero. So you have what we call height over bore deviation. Well, you can use the stadia as an offset aiming point to account for that height over bore deviation, putting yourself on target, because it can be several inches depending on your distance. Say for instance, if you zeroed at 50 yards and you're shooting at 15, well, you're going to be closer to this elevation than you are going to be this elevation where your sight is. So you can use that to account for that. And then the other thing that I find it pretty useful for is when you're patterning shotguns. So you throw the circle up on the target, you figure out where your shotgun load patterns on that target at a particular distance. You know now that at a distance that circle covers a man-sized target, for instance, that all your pellets will be on. And then you can use that to gauge whether or not you're taking a risk with your shot or not, based on how that exterior circle maps to the target size. And then last but not least, what I'm going to say the one that I use it for the most is when I'm using an optic for passive aiming through night vision. I find it very, very difficult to pick up a single small dot through my PVS-14 when I'm trying to do passive aiming. If I'm trying to do precise shooting at night, you go to passive aiming versus your projected laser at like close range and stuff like that. Lighting conditions tonight are exceptional with no moon. That is the lowest setting. Kurt needs to remember to put his hearing protection on. Okay. There's the lowest setting, and if we go up one, feel the buttons here. Yep, there is our higher setting, and this is also invisible to the naked eye. Okay. And if we were to do, you can see, well, excuse me, I can see very little past that setting. There's a little bit of bloom there, and it's kind of darkening out the target a little bit, but if I go back down to, trying to feel it, where is it? But if I have it on that setting, then we can see the reticle and the target a little bit better than if we were to use, say, the upper setting. Now, what happens when we go up more than the two night vision settings? And so I found my setting here. There is the first setting, there is the second night vision setting, and then we're going to push the button one more time, and you can see completely unusable. Alright, so last test here, I am focused in on the van down there, and let's just see, that's about 50 yards. And if we go down on the lowest night vision setting, we can still see the van. Let's take a little bit closer look at the Gideon Mediator before I get rained on here. You can see that the mount is one of the kind of clamp mount styles with a single Torx bit screw there that clamps it to the rail. It seems very stout and very stable. No problems with zero loss or anything like that up to this point. Good job on the mount. I also like that it is a Torx bit screw. Now, as far as power plant, the power plant is a single 2032 located underneath of this single screwdriver flat there. You can see right there, and that has an O-ring on it to make sure that it's waterproof and everything, so good on them for looking out as far as that is concerned. The adjustments are located windage here, elevation on the top, and they are single MOA adjustments, and I'll have on screen the adjustment range for both windage and elevation for those of you who want to nerd about it. If we flip over onto this side, we can see the control panel, plus for plus, minus for minus brightness, right? And as far as accessing the night vision modes are concerned, you just simply continue to go down, and then when you can't see it with the naked eye anymore, it is now in the first more powerful night vision mode, and then you hit it again and you're in the lower power night vision mode. This thing does have power saving mode, so if you leave this thing stationary for, I think it's like 200 and some seconds, it will go into power saving mode to save battery life, and then with a little bit of a shock of any kind, it'll come right back to life, ready for use before you can get it up to your eye. I like that feature because I often forget to turn my stuff off, and because of that, I end up with dead batteries all the time. This is definitely one of the features that was baked in for people like me. Now moving on to my critiques. How do we improve upon the Mediator as it is in future iterations? And before we get there, I will say that this is getting pretty high marks for me. There's a fair amount of attention to detail in this. Everything from including the tools that you need in the box, Loctiting everything in the correct place, using the correct Loctite compound, etc., stuff like that goes a long way with me. They are focusing on the minute details. One improvement that I would say, and I think you guys saw this during the night vision segment, is that these buttons are a little bit difficult to find via touch. Even though they are rubberized, there's a differentiation in the material there. Being able to find it when you absolutely cannot see it, maybe raise those ever so slightly. Make the button ever so slightly bigger. Now that is going to be a subjective thing. That is going to be the getting it by feel versus it accidentally being activated by laying it down and stuff like that. So there might be a balancing act there. However, the major critique that I will issue on this thing is less of an execution thing and more of a market compatibility thing. I think that the ACRO pattern needed to be made by Aimpoint. And if you're not familiar with ACRO, it's basically shrunk down Picatinny rail, because a full Picatinny rail doesn't fit on, some things. So having a pattern for micro optics like this, very good to have a reduced Picatinny rail. It doesn't have any screws that bolt through anything, Loctite, etc., etc. It's literally a clamp mount. I like it. However, at this juncture, the ACRO footprint has not seen widespread adoption. And I think that while we do need optics in the ACRO footprint that are cost effective, I think that Gideon would be served by offering this and some other footprints that are perhaps a little bit more widely adopted at this juncture. Again, keep the keep the ACRO footprint, because we should have that, but maybe a few other footprints to ensure commercial success of the optic, because I would hate to see an optic like this not be continuously offered because simply a whole lot of people aren't buying into ACRO footprint. So other than that, fantastic job, Gideon Optics, and hopefully we'll see more from them in the future as some of their other offerings kind of filter in for eval. And thank you all for watching and joining us here at the VSO Gun Channel. Hopefully we'll see you on another video here pretty soon.